Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the second day of Introduction of Research Methods. We will today be discussing building a conceptual model. Yesterday I told you how to make a topic, and today I will be telling you how to build a conceptual model. Now, do not get worried. बिल्कुल ही एक सिंपल तरीके से समझाया जाएगा how to make a conceptual model, and why is the conceptual model important is also something I will explain. Now, there is this one word that I have to introduce you to, which is called construct. Okay. Um, why is or what was the relevance of construct? I will talk about my past experience, and I think that will make it clearer. So when I was doing my PhD, I was working on a construct called attitude. My PhD was on attitude of consumer behavior towards garment purchase. That was my main topic. Now, when I was working on attitude, I did not know how to measure it. Okay, because I knew how to measure age, I knew how to measure income, I knew how to measure economic factors. If you remember the PhD that I did, so my guy told me to take economic factors. They were easier to measure. They were very easier to measure. But I did not want to do that. I wanted to go for psychological factors. And when I took up psychological factors, I found out that in consumer behavior, there are n number of psychological factors. For example, attitude, happiness, satisfaction, brand image. And I was so confused as to how to measure them. I did not know how to measure them. It is then and through the FTPs, of course, faculty developed programs of Neeraj Kaushik sir have been very useful to me to understand this concept. I came to know that all these variables, okay, or all these, yesterday we spoke about independent dependent variables. So all these factors, taken together, which cannot be measured. Okay, so the variable which I take together, which cannot be measured in kgs, meters, inches, kilograms, liters. They cannot be measured like that in a numeric form. They are called constructs, or we also call them latent variables. Okay, attitude, satisfaction. Okay, suppose I take performance of a company. Okay, if I am measuring it from profit, it is not a construct. Why? Because when I say profit, I can measure it in numbers. Okay, so that is what is called an observed variable. It's not a construct. But if I say I want to see the behavior of investors, suppose my variable, my dependent variable is the behavior of investors, then I need to say that this is a construct. The factors of a construct are that, or how is it different from an observed variable like age, income, profit, etc., is that it is not measured in a numeric form. Rather, it is measured with a standard scale. I repeat, it is measured, the value of a construct is measured with a standard scale. Okay, what is the standard scale? You must have heard it in many FTPs. It is used in FTPs which say Introduction to SPSS, Structural Equational Modeling, PLSM. You go to those FTPs, and again they say the word construct or latent variable. And then, there's a big circle called a construct, and then there are some small circles which say items. Okay, what are these items? These constructs are measured through items. Okay, I'll give you an example of that. So, if I say happiness, if you see on the slide, this lady is happy. How happy is she? Is she little happy? Is she more happy? Is she most happy? Okay, now theoretically or subjectively, we cannot define it, so we need to measure it. Okay, this happiness could be a dependent or independent variable. So if it is a variable, I should know how to measure it. And to measure it, I use standard scales, I use statements to measure this construct. Okay. Now, Measurement of a construct. Now this huge circle that you see, if you've attended a SEM or PLS SEM workshop, you must have seen this huge circle and then these small little squares. Now this huge circle is called a construct or a latent variable, okay? But when you see these four things are nothing but items. Now what are items? Items are nothing but the statements of a construct. So if I say, you have an example below, if I say diet is a construct, if I say diet is a construct, there are three items to it. When I say items to it, there are three statements. You can see R1, R2, R3. Okay? Now, what are these statements? These statements are a means of measuring diet. But these are still statements. It is still qualitative. What should I do? So, in front of all these three statements, what will I do? I will write strongly agree to strongly disagree. I will put a 3-point or a 5-point or a 7-point Likert scale. Okay, so this is nothing but my questioning. This is nothing but my questioning. So if I have to measure the diet of a person, if I have to measure if Jaspreet Kaur is dieting or not, okay, what should I ask Jaspreet? I should ask Jaspreet three statements. I eat healthy food. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. Jaspreet will take strongly agree. I do not eat much junk food. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. Jaspreet will take strongly disagree. Now, the strongly agree to strongly disagree is will come into a scale from 1 to 5. So say strongly agree is 5 and strongly disagree is 1. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got numbers. Now these numbers can be put into a software called SPSS and we can do further analysis to this variable or to this construct. Okay, now somebody also asked me what is a variable. Now these items are very frequently referred to as variables. Okay, so when we say that we have a construct called diet, the R1, R2, R3 are my variables and the R1, R2, R3 are also my items and the R1, R2, R3 are also my statements in the questionnaire. I hope this much is clear. If it is clear, please type a yes. Okay. Now, questions of course will be addressed at the end of the session because it's difficult to see the chat together. Now, there are, if you understood the construct and item thing, now the next thing is there are two types of measurement of constructs. Okay. One is called reflective scale and the second is called formative scale. Now, whenever you go into a SEM or a PLS SEM or an introduction to SPSS, introduction to SPSS of course does not have that technical thing. But if you now after this workshop, if you intend to go into a SEM or a PLS SEM workshop, you will see that when you make these small little squares, there are arrows either pointing towards the squares or on the right side, if you can see, there are arrows pointing away from the squares. So you will see two types of models or you will see two types of construct and two types of items. Okay, now let me explain what is the first type of scale which is called reflective scale. Let me come to the left side. I'm still on the left side of my slide. Now there is something called a reflective scale. What is a reflective scale? If diet is my construct and these four squares are my items or statement, all four statements will measure the same thing. Repeating in Hindi, अगर डाइट मेरा कंस्ट्रक्ट है और इस डाइट को मेजर करने के लिए मैंने ये जो चार स्क्वायर आपको दिखाई दे रहे हैं ये लिए हैं या फिर चार आइटम लिए हैं या फिर चार स्टेटमेंट्स लिए हैं, तो ये चारों स्टेटमेंट एक ही चीज के बारे में बात करेंगी. Now, when all four statements are talking about the same thing, question to you, everyone alert. Question to you, If all these four statements in my reflective scale are talking about the same thing, then should my sample always give a similar answer, that is strongly agree to all four, or should he give different answers? Question: similar answers or different answers? So what should the sample do? If all these four statements were measuring the same thing, okay, what should I have done? I should have got similar answers. So it is like saying, just I'll explain with the example I've given. Just see the example diet. Okay. Now somebody who is diet conscious, okay, you gave him a questionnaire. This questionnaire had three, forget reflective, formative, this questionnaire had three statements. Now I am saying diet is a reflective scale, and I am saying all these three statements are talking about the same thing. So I eat healthy food, okay, and somebody said strongly agree. Number 5, tick. I do not eat much junk food. Now what should he say to this? Should he say 5 or should he say 1? He should say 5, 4 or 3. Come to the next statement. I have a balanced diet. What should he say to this? Should he say 5, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3 or should he say 1? He should be saying 5, 4 or 3. Okay, this is how they should be marked. So having said that, when I'm having a reflective construct, all my statements should have been inclined towards one side. Either 3, 4, 5 or 1, 2, 3. Period. Or else I will not get my reliability right. We will speak about reliability also. If I don't get my reflective statements towards 3, 4, 5 or 1, 2, 3, okay, inclined towards this, which means my sample is not good, because it is like asking the same thing thrice. He should have given the same answers when I'm talking about reflective scale. Now let me come to formative scale. Okay, formative scale means I have a formative scale. I've given you an example, health, in the slide. Now I'm asking three statements. Okay, but different answers could be there for these three statements. For example, I am a health conscious person and you gave me a questionnaire and you gave me these three statements. I have a balanced diet, strongly agree to strongly disagree, 5 to 1. I exercise regularly, strongly agree to strongly disagree, 5 to 1. And I could have said, yes, I have a balanced diet. Okay, 5. Okay, I exercise regularly, I might say 1. I might say 1. I might be a health conscious person, and there are n number of health conscious person in the world who do have a healthy, who have a balanced diet, but they don't exercise. Okay, I get sufficient sleep. No, I might not get. So what happens is, in statement number 1, the person might mark strongly agree. In statement number 2, he could give 1. In statement number 3, he could give 2. This is fine. So what is a formative construct? A formative construct is one where all these three things are a way of measuring the formative construct health, but they are not asking the same question again and again. Now, there must be a doubt. If you've understood, there must be a doubt in your minds. Ma'am, how do we know whether a construct is reflective or a construct is formative? Here I would like you to go back to review of literature. When you study a variable called diet, when you study standard scales given by authors, definitely they will have written that this scale is reflective. When you go and study papers on health and you find standard scales, by the way, these are standard scales given by authors, we do not construct them. We do not construct them. These three statements I have not constructed. I have taken standard scales. And by the way, in today's date, there are standard scales available for all variables. All variables. If yesterday you have been able to get to your topic of PhD, if you were able to identify the independent and dependent variables, specific ones, the next thing you have to do is Find out the standard scale for the independent and dependent variable. Okay, the scale could be reflective or formative, but 95% of social science research is being done on reflective scales, not formative. So, when it is a reflective scale, it can be analyzed by structural equational modeling. When it is a formative scale, you have to go to something like PLSM. That is the reason why PLSM actually came into picture. Okay, otherwise we were doing SEM, structural equational modeling for multivariate analysis. Structural equational modeling was very good when I was using constructs. When I was using constructs, it was very good. But the problem is that there was so much of research done on reflective scales, 95%. So people said, okay, let us try formative scales. Now, when you're trying formative scales, the SEM and AMOS doesn't work on that. So came PLSM. Okay, so if any of you do have a formative scale in your research, please do PLSM and not SEM. Okay, so I hope it's clear. First thing first is reflective and formative clear. Majorly clear, of course, one-to-one questions I'll take at the end. Majorly is the concept clear? Please write a yes or no. Okay, right. So this is about it. How do you come to know reflective formative? Please go to review of literature. Okay, 95% you will find that a standard state given by an author, for example, this scale of diet was given by some XYZ author, it is reflective, it is measuring the same thing again and again. I should get 3, 4, 5 or I should get 1, 2, 3 or else my sample is deceptive. Redo the whole research. My sample is not genuine. And also, now that I'm doing this, I should also tell you sometimes what we do is when we are working in the reflective scale, sometimes you might come across something called a positive statement and a negative statement. What is that? I eat healthy food, positive statement. I do not eat much junk. Okay, negative statement. I have a balanced diet, positive statement. Now, sometimes what you can do is you can have a mixture of this. Okay, for example, and that is done to check my sample. Now, just see this. I eat healthy food. What will the sample say? Strongly agree. Last statement. I have a balanced diet. Let me convert it into negative. I don't have a balanced diet. Now, think logically. It's very simple. Research is very simple if you logically understand it. A person already told you, I eat healthy food. He said strongly agree. Now you are asking the same person, I do not have a balanced diet. What should he be writing? What should be the value? Tell me. What should be the value? The value should be 1 or 2. I repeat, I eat healthy food. That person already said 5, strongly agree. Now you have given him a negative statement just to check him. I do not have a balanced diet. Okay, what should be his reaction? His reaction should be 1 or 2. If it is not this, it means your sample is faulty. There are times when people write 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. If you give them this negative statement, it will be easy for you to check those people. If they write a 4 on the statement, I don't have a balanced diet, it is a defective sample. You have to redo your research. Okay, so constructive formative is done. Okay, yes, so again, as I said, as you could see over here, in a reflective, the arrow goes away from the construct. In the formative, the arrow comes into the construct. Okay, this is just a way of seeing when you have already put it into a software like AMOS. Okay, so happiness. Okay, now here I have the whole thing. Happiness is my construct. It is a reflective construct. I got a standard scale from some author, say Bell. Okay, and he gave me 3 statements. This is a standard scale. I keep smiling. I don't get angry. I love my life. Okay, and I get the standard statements. On each statement, I add a Likert scale 1 to 5, or it could also be 1 to 7. Okay, it is said that when a Likert scale used is 1 to 7, the reliability etc. of the data is better than when you use a 5-point scale or a 3-point scale. Okay, strongly agree to strongly disagree. Generally, we do this. There could be other modifications also. I like too much and don't like at all. There could be variations in the Likert. You have to find it out. And this is an example of a formative scale, okay, where the arrows go towards the construct. Okay, workshop effectiveness. I could measure the effectiveness of this workshop from the resource person, from the connectivity issues, from the queries answered. Okay, it could be possible that some of you say resource person was good, strongly agree, 5, but connectivity was not good, say 3, or the queries answered were not sufficient, number 1. Okay, so in a formative scale, you can have variations in the among the items. Mind you, workshop effectiveness is the construct, resource person, connectivity, queries are all my statements or items or variables. Okay, how am I measuring them? It could further go on to measuring, for example, resource person. How do I see? I could further have statements for resource person and I could mark them on Likert scale 1 to 5. Okay, so that is also, we commonly call it second order construct. Okay, so first order is work effectiveness and 3 items, and further if resource person you are further dividing into items. Okay, further dividing it into further variables or items, then it becomes a second order construct. Okay, the process of making a conceptual model. Now let's come to how you start at. So we start with the end point, okay, which is the dependent variable. So yesterday we all have done dependent and independent variables in class 1. So now let me start from the dependent variable. Okay, many of you were asking that there's a variation of studies, where should I start it, and I told you start with the dependent variable. First thing, what do you want to study? I need a broad this thing कि आप पढ़ना क्या चाहते हो, मेरे को एक broad area चाहिए. अब मैं एक HR डोमेन की एम्प्लॉय हूँ, मैंने कहा ओके मुझे पढ़ना है वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस. ठीक है, ये एक ब्रॉड एरिया मैंने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया, ये मेरा टॉपिक है. अब this broad area work life balance suppose is my dependent variable. मैं पढ़ना चाहती हूँ कि इस वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस को क्या क्या इफेक्ट करता है. आई वॉन्ट टू स्टडी व्हाट इफेक्ट्स माय डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस. नाउ I identify, the next step is go and read papers. So what will I do? I will go to Google Scholar and type factors affecting work life balance. Once I read papers, I will get what is called my IVs. Okay, I will get my independent variables. I'll get all the factors which affect my DV, work-life balance. I will start putting arrows toward it. So I start putting arrows from the IV to the DV. Okay, and last is that after we have constructed this semi-model with a few IVs and one DV. Okay, and that is what is your assignment for today. You all will work on your domain and construct a mini model and send it to me over mail and I will check it. So today all of you, whether your PhD title has been decided or not, you will decide on one construct today. So if you want to study work-life balance, it will be work-life balance. If you want to study impulse buying, it will be impulse buying. Some of you might want to study customer satisfaction, okay, brand image, whatever is your construct. I want you to go and study papers and find out at least 5 IVs. 5 IVs which affect that construct and put arrows from those IVs towards those that one construct. Okay, so we identify potential IVs. Okay, how do we identify it? We identify through empirical and theoretical evidence. What is that? Basically research papers. Okay, so when you type on Google factors affecting work-life balance, you will get n number of papers. From those papers, pick up the IVs. Okay, it is also called antecedent. Last but not the least, I explained to you about the confounding variables. Okay, last but not the least, if you want to in this model, you can add a confounding variable, but right now just make a simple model, all IVs and DVs. I will come to confounding variables on say day 4, where I'll explain mediation and moderation. Once I explain that, You can again go back to literature and add the moderators and mediators, but right now don't do it. Right now just give me a small theoretical model which we ideally call conceptual model. Okay. Now, this is how you work. So, if I say I want to work on, say, happiness, okay, and these are the IVs I have found out, okay, can you tell me, and this is a question for all of you, if you have understood how to make a mini conceptual model, if you have understood what are reflective and formative scales, my question to you, there's a slide which says that the construct, of course, is happiness and the IVs affecting it. Okay, and how did I form this model? I formed it through literature review. So I went back, I checked papers, and papers said that optimism leads to happiness. Okay, this is an actual research, by the way. This is an actual paper that I picked up. Work satisfaction came out to be one IV which had affected happiness. Says who? 3-4 authors. Now, once you make this model, okay, my first question to you is look at the direction of the arrow and tell me, is this a formative scale or is this a reflective scale? Quickly, within a minute. Within a minute. Is it reflective or is it formative? Okay. This is supposed to be, because the arrows are coming towards the construct, it's supposed to be a formative scale. Okay, how did I get this? I got it through past review of literature. So as and when I get a variable, say optimism affects happiness, there was a research paper on optimism affecting happiness, quickly I put an arrow. Okay, now the work doesn't finish here. The work doesn't finish here. Despite the fact that you picked up the IV from a research paper, okay, you have to still support each of these arrows by at least 4 authors. So having said that, if you are and all these arrows later on will turn into hypotheses. Okay, all this is your conceptual model. All these arrows, if there are 6 arrows, you will have 6 hypotheses. Okay, we will come to hypothesis also in coming days. So now what will you do? You have collected this 6 IVs and the arrow goes towards a construct. Now for each IV you need the proof of 4 authors. Okay, so if you say work satisfaction affects happiness of a person, give me 4 authors who say so, or else do not add that variable or do not add that construct into your model. I hope this much is understood. If understood, please type a yes. Now, there could be, okay, I hope this much is clear. I hope this much is clear. Rest of the questions I will take at the end of the class. Okay, now, you might ask me a question that, ma'am, if all variables have to come from 4 past research or 4 authors who have said so, then what is the use of me doing research? Because you're saying all these arrows are coming from 4 authors who have said so. Now, like somebody asked a question yesterday also, Dr. Jasprit Kaur, might have studied these 6 factors on happiness, but there might have been another report where money might have been studied as a factor towards happiness, but it is not a part of this conceptual model. I will add one more IV into this model named money, and this is my contribution. Okay, now you might say, ma'am, even money has been studied by someone. Okay, that is why you're putting it in. It has been studied by 4 authors, I agree. But the consolidated effect of these 7 constructs, okay, including money, there are 6 here plus 1 money. The consolidated impact of all these 7 together on happiness has never been studied. So this is one of my research gaps. Okay. Unfortunately, yes, if I have to put a new variable, I have to take it from research. I have to take it from 4 authors who say there is a relationship between this IB and the DB happiness. Okay, unfortunately, yes. But I'll answer one more question, but I'll come to how to take a new variable. Now, another gap is, suppose with these 6 variables and 1 DB, this mini conceptual model, this model was applied in Europe, but this model has never been tested in India. You can test it in India and write down a report, even that is a gap in research. Okay, is that much clear? This is the second gap. Number 3. This model was tested on, we are talking about the happiness of an employee of the fashion industry. Suppose this paper or this model, this structural equational model, which you will later do, this conceptual model, which will now go into technical analysis called SEM. It is a multivariate analysis. If you can see, it has more than 2 variables. So it is multivariate analysis. Moreover, it has constructs. So I have to go for a technique called SEM, structural equational modeling. So when it goes to SEM, I see that the results of this paper show that this model was only implied on fashion employees. It has never been applied on the IT employees. If you apply it on the IT employees, that is also a research gap. I hope now you are understanding how can you formulate a research gap. Okay. Last but not the least, that is what I've started doing now. Initially, I was for the past so many years I was experimenting with variables which I got from research, and when you get variables from a research, you also get a standard scale then and there. Okay, so there are research papers where when you get the relationship between work satisfaction and happiness, you get the standard scale of both the variables in the research paper itself. So it's very easy. You get a relationship from somewhere, you get the standard scales from that paper, you get the statements from that paper, you just put it into your paper, fill up a questionnaire, do the analysis and hypothesize whether it has an impact or it doesn't have an impact. It's very simple. But I didn't want to do that. So that is when I went into something called qualitative research. We will be doing that in the coming 3 days. Okay. So in case you feel, ma'am, no, I'm not satisfied. I'm still not satisfied. 6 variables studied by 4 authors. 7th variable again studied by 4 authors. I want to study the impact of, say, in India, domestic work on happiness. And I want to do it specifically for female employees. Now look at how specific the research has become. You want to study the impact of cooking or the impact of domestic work on a female employee's happiness. Imagine how specific it has become. Now, you will not get any such research in the whole of whatever research world you have. Okay, so you will not get anything like this. So what do you do? You have to, what you have to do, just give me a second. Yeah. So what do you have to do? You have to do something called exploration. We are coming to that when we do research techniques tomorrow. You have to do exploration. What is exploration? You will have to go to those Indian female employees with something called a technique called personal interview. Open-ended questions, 5-6 open-ended questions. You will have to ask them, ma'am, when you do domestic work, does it make you happy? If yes, why does it make you happy? Okay, I'll tell you the whole process of developing a scale also in these 5 days. So, ma'am, when you do domestic work, does it make you happy? She will tell you, and that's it you have to do. She will give you a 1-page explanation of whether domestic work makes her happy or does not make her happy. Just note down that whole lot of thing and analyze that and make statements. Okay, this is all called exploratory research. This is also called qualitative research data analysis, and I will come to that maybe on the 4th or 5th day. I will come to that. So now you have to do secondary data, you have to do qualitative analysis through personal interview, and then come out with items. You have to make items, but not like this. Not like saying, Acha, I think I've been in India for 20 years. I think the statements which will tell about domestic work and happiness are so and so so and so. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Those statements have to come from research. Those statements have to come from review of literature. Those statements have to come from that lady, that Indian lady you are about to interview. And then you make a set of statements and you put a Likert scale and say, okay, one more variable out of these six, the seventh will be domestic work and its relationship to happiness. Okay, many of you can go for that when you do your PhD research. Okay, so you can do a mix of exploration and this, which is description. Okay, so that is if you want to put you're that passionate that I want to put a variable which no author has researched with, and you don't even have a scale. If an author hasn't researched, you don't have standard scale for it. So which statements will you ask? You will have to do a very long process to get to those statements. That is called skill development. Okay, and by the way, when we write research papers, skill development by itself is a research paper. So forget putting it into this model and testing, just developing a scale for a construct is a research paper by itself. Here domestic work was the construct. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. So this is what I found out. I'm just describing how I made this model. Okay. So just neglect the IVs. What is the process of doing this? I typed on Google factors affecting happiness. Okay. So in one paper, in the first research paper, I got that optimism is one of the factors which affects happiness. Okay, that's just a very comical representation of that. So I got optimism, I got self-esteem. It's not necessary I get only one factor, I could get two factors. Okay, so I put it into this arrows. Okay, I quickly put it as, okay, my V4 is optimism and it affects happiness. But when you get this from a research paper, do not end there. You have to take two more things from that same research paper. Okay, and please save it on Mendeley. We will be talking about Mendeley also. So the moment you get this research paper, you have to get two more things from it. Number one, you have to make this arrow. Number two, you have to get the standard scale of optimism. The standard scale, the standard statements for measuring optimism will be given by the researcher then and there. Okay, so that is the second thing which you have to do. The third thing which you have to do, as I said, if V4 is optimism and it impacts happiness, we need 4 authors. Those 4 authors also you will get over there only. How will you get? In any of the papers that you study which has an impact of optimism, okay, on happiness, you will have a hypothesis. So this arrow will be shown as a hypothesis. It will say hypothesis is optimism impacts happiness. Okay, suppose a bivariate relationship. Optimism impacts happiness. So this will be given in the research paper. So the moment you see that hypothesis, a paragraph above it, the paragraph above this hypothesis, you will get those 4 authors who say optimism has an impact on happiness. Okay, I did it for research paper 1, that is how I did. Research paper 2, work confidence. Okay, so I studied another research paper. I am still on factors affecting happiness on Google Scholar, and I go to another research paper where it said, oh my god, work confidence is one of the factors which affects happiness. Again, 3 things I have to do. One is quickly make an arrow over here, work influence or work confidence, and second thing, pick up the standard scale, work confidence, note down the author who has given that scale, okay, the statements, okay, pick up those 5 statements quickly, they will be a part of my questionnaire. Number 3, there will definitely be a hypothesis saying work confidence impacts happiness or work confidence has a positive relationship on happiness. Pick up this hypothesis. Above the hypothesis, you will see a paragraph where there will be research papers or authors who have said or who have actually said yes to this bivariate relationship. Pick up all those authors and your review of literature for your conceptual model is ready. Do the same thing for value. Okay, so this is how I did it and I made this model called happiness. Okay, so okay, you could have more than one paper also. So if I am adding an independent variable like value, you might get 3-4 papers on Google Scholar where it says value impacts happiness. Okay, read all the papers, pick up all the authors. Okay, one very important thing. If you get 3 papers which say value, they all 3 papers might have different standard scales. So one paper might say, I judged value by these 3 statements and these 3 statements were given by Roth. There might be second paper which said, I measured value from these 4 statements and these 4 statements were given by Simmons. There might be a third paper which says, I measured value by these 4 statements, different 4 statements, and this was given by, say, Roth. Now what do? You have 3 standard scales from 3 papers. You are free to choose any standard scale and any author. But in my last workshop, people asked me, कुछ लोगों ने मुझसे पूछा था कि मैडम जब हम ये 3 पेपर्स पे जाएंगे और तीनों पेपर्स पे हमको एक वेरिएबल मिलेगा वैल्यू और हमको एक वेरिएबल मिलेगा वैल्यू इम्पैक्ट से हैप्पीनेस और हमको ऊपर उसके ऊपर वाले पैराग्राफ में उसके 4 ऑथर्स मिल जाएंगे, वो 4 ऑथर जो इस रिलेशनशिप को ठीक बोलते हैं, ठीक है। लेकिन अगर मुझे एक पेपर में कोई 3 स्टेटमेंट्स मिली डॉक्टर रॉ की, दूसरे पेपर में मुझे 4 स्टेटमेंट्स मिली डॉक्टर सेमेंस की, तीसरे पेपर में मुझे 4 स्टेटमेंट्स मिली बेल की, ठीक है। अब क्या मैं इन सबको इकट्ठा कर सकता हूं या कर सकती हूं? तो द आंसर इज नो, आप नहीं कर सकते। जब बेल्क साहब ने 4 स्टेटमेंट्स दे दी वैल्यू के लिए, आप उसमें छेड़छाड़ नहीं कर सकते, उन 4 को आप 4 ही रखेंगे। अगर आपको बेल्क साहब की 4 उठानी है, आप 4 उठाइए। अगर आपको रॉ की 6 उठानी है, 6 उठाइए। किसी की 3 उठानी है, 3 उठाइए। आप इन सबको मिक्स नहीं करेंगे, आप केवल एक स्केल उठाएंगे। यू विल पिक अप ओनली वन स्टैंडर्ड स्केल from any of the 3 papers having 3 different authors, 3 different scales. Okay, that is one. Number 2, when you pick up these statements, any of these statements, you just put a Likert scale of 1 to 5, strongly agree to strongly disagree, or 7 as per your convenience, and your questionnaire is ready. Your questionnaire is ready. You can now go for statistical analysis. Okay, so this is the way I made my conceptual model. Okay, now very important, a few of the people also ask me till date, I mean even when I take technical FTPs like meta-analysis, then also people ask me, ma'am, I got paper for say one value, we are discussing value impacts happiness. Okay, ma'am, one paper is saying perceived value, one paper is saying value for money, one paper is saying only value, one paper is saying value for something. Can I take all these? No, you cannot take all these. You cannot take all these. So if your variable is value impacts happiness, you will only search paper where the word value is used. If your variable is perceived value impacts happiness, you will only take papers which have perceived value. If your paper is value for money impacts happiness, you will only take authors who have spoken about value for money and no other value. Very, very strictly follow this. Do not get confused. This is because, as I told you in the first part also, that each and every value each and every construct has to be defined. It has to have an operational definition. Okay, value has a different operational definition. Perception to value has a different operational definition. These are two different constructs. So if they are two different constructs, they will have two different types of statements to measure them. Okay, so don't mix them up. Okay, be very strict while sorting out papers. Start writing literature left to right for each arrow. So if this is your model, start from left to right. Okay, I start from workplace influence to DV, from left to right. And right now I'm showing you a very small model. This model could go further. So there might be 6 arrows towards happiness, and then again from happiness there might be 4 or 5 arrows, impacts of happiness. For example, here what we are showing is what impacts happiness. So they are called antecedents. So these are factors which will impact happiness. But when a person is happy, there will be further outcomes of that. Those 6, 7 outcomes, say for example, he's good to his family, he's good to his children, he's good to his bosses, his efficiency increases, his performance increases. What are these? These are on the right side of happiness. These are the outcomes of happiness. So you might get papers where you might get outcomes of a happy person also. So you might get another 5 arrows to the right side. When you start writing your review of literature, you move from left to right. So first you will describe work influence on happiness, work social relationship happiness, so on and so forth. Also, you move top to bottom. So out of all these 6 variables, which is the first one you will describe in review of literature? Workplace influence and happiness. You will write a paragraph about it. You will quote 4 authors in it. You will say hypothesis, work influence impacts happiness. Then you go to the second, third, fourth, so on and so on. When you finish the whole left side, then you go to the right side. Again, top to bottom. Okay? Okay. Use arrows to imply causality. Now, when I say there is an arrow in this, what am I saying? I am saying there is a cause-effect relationship. Workplace influence is causing happiness. Okay? Workplace influence is IV and happiness is DV. Okay. Okay. IV and DV. Okay, each arrow becomes a hypothesis that I have told you. Each arrow has to be justified by 3 authors. I have told you. Where will you get it? You will get it in the research paper itself. All this material you will get. Items can be received from a standard scale or measurement tool from an author. Items or statements or your questionnaire statements are this. Now you will realize that how were we doing our research. Let me let me go to that layman way of doing research like I did in my MBA. Okay, so I just went to a consumer and said, okay, rank this product in 1 to 3. Then I said, okay, how do you feel about this product? It was a mix of standard questions and non-standard questions. It was a mix of qualitative questions and quantitative questions. पूरा खिचड़ी था मेरे क्वेश्चनर में. क्वालिटेटिव भी था, क्वांटिटेटिव भी था, ओपन एंडेड भी था, क्लोज एंडेड भी था. इतनी समझ ही नहीं थी कि कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट भी कोई चीज होती है. उसको मेजर करने के लिए ऑथर्स ने स्टेटमेंट्स दे रखी हैं, और अगर किसी कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट को मेजर करने के लिए ऑथर ने स्टेटमेंट नहीं दे रखी है तो क्वालिटेटिव एनालिसिस करके, पर्सनल इंटरव्यू, रिव्यू ऑफ लिटरेचर करके हम अपना खुद का कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट बना सकते हैं, उसकी स्टेटमेंट्स बना सकते हैं. इतनी समझ थी नहीं. तो जो मेरा एमबीए का क्वेश्चनर था, या कई में आपने भी नोटिस किया होगा अपने क्वेश्चनर्स में, हमें पता ही नहीं था कि आईवी क्या है, डीवी क्या है, कॉजालिटी क्या है, स्टैंडर्ड स्केल क्या है. ठीक है. So now that you people know all this, I think it should be better off for you to. Okay, this is an example of an item. Okay, I am working towards religiosity. Okay, I am working towards a variable, and as I was explaining also to a few of you that we need a very solid gap. We need a very solid gap. So if you say I want to study the impact of attitude on intention, it is very common, done by hundreds of people. Okay, if you think, okay, I want to study the impact of customer satisfaction on something, done by many people. So I wanted a new variable, and this is how I searched. I searched paper of the past 3 years, specifically past 3 years, and my DV that I decide for my paper is purchase intention. I only work on purchase intention. So I said, okay, what are the factors affecting purchase intention? I got common factors like attitude and things like ethical concern. I got many factors which I knew from my experience that these I've seen many times. So then I got a factor called religiosity. Imagine whether a person is religious or not also has an impact on his purchase intention. I said चलो इस पे काम करते हैं, ये नया फैक्टर निकला, ये कहीं देखा नहीं है, ठीक है, तो इस पे काम करते हैं. नाउ मैंने इसका स्केल ढूंढना शुरू किया, मुझे एक पेपर में ये मिला, आप देख सकते हैं, मैंने पेपर का टाइटल लिखा है इंटरनल कंसिस्टेंसी ऑफ अ स्पेनिश ट्रांसलेशन ऑफ द एटीट्यूड टुवर्ड्स क्रिश्चियनिटी. ठीक है, कैंपो एरियस एट ऑल 2007 का ये पेपर था. इसमें रिलीजियोसिटी को एटीट्यूड के ऊपर रिलेशनशिप बनाया हुआ था. रिलीजियोसिटी इम्पैक्ट्स एटीट्यूड हाइपोथेसिस था. रिलीजियोसिटी और एटीट्यूड दोनों के स्टैंडर्ड स्केल्स दिए हुए थे. एटीट्यूड एक बहुत ही कॉमन कंस्ट्रक्ट था, तो उसका स्केल मेरे पास था. रिलीजियोसिटी न्यू कंस्ट्रक्ट था, ये देखिए उसका स्केल मुझे यहाँ से मिल गया. दिस इज एक्चुअली बीइंग टेकन फ्रॉम दिस पेपर. ठीक है, तो मुझे क्या करना है, मुझे सिर्फ एक ऑथर को कोट करना है. मुझे कहना है आई यूज द religious scale of Campo areas et al. 2007. This standard scale had some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items, okay, or maybe say 7 items, and these 7 items के आगे मैंने लगा दिया strongly agree to strongly disagree, which is 5 to 1 ranking, और मैंने उसको क्वेश्चनर में डाला और अपने सैंपल्स को दे दिया. ठीक है, सिमिलर थिंग आई डिड फॉर एटीट्यूड. एटीट्यूड का भी 3 पॉइंट स्केल था, 3 स्टेटमेंट्स थी, उसको स्ट्रांगली एग्री टू स्ट्रांगली डिसएग्री डाला, और एटीट्यूड और रिलीजन की जितनी भी टोटल स्टेटमेंट्स थी उनका क्वेश्चनर बना के मैंने सैंपल को दे दिया. अब जो रिजल्ट्स आएंगे, ठीक है, उनको जब मैं एनालाइज करूंगी तो मैं एक सिंपल सा बाइवेरिएट एनालिसिस, अ सिंपल बाइवेरिएट एनालिसिस इज वेरी मच पॉसिबल between religiosity and attitude, and if my values come positive for the relationship, which is statistical test, which we will see how to do. So if my value between attitude and religiosity and attitude come positive, there's a correlation test which is done. So if correlation comes positive, which means religion of a person does impact attitude. ठीक है, काम यहीं पर खत्म नहीं होता है. अभी हमने केवल और केवल अभी हमने सिर्फ कंसेप्चुअल मॉडल बनाया है. वी हैव जस्ट कंस्ट्रक्टेड अ कंसेप्चुअल मॉडल. वी आर गेटिंग स्टैंडर्ड स्केल. सो व्हाट आई वांट फॉर यू फ्रॉम यू पीपल इज दैट as a part of the assignment you people will construct try and construct, and this is not a compulsory thing you have to do, but in case you can do, it will be good if you can mail it to me. Well and good. I hope your topic for the research is decided. So if you're decided on your research topic, and even if you intend to write a Scopus paper or a paper in APDC list of journals, still the whole process is same. It is absolutely same like PhD. So if you people intend to even write a paper, pick up something new, as simple as factors affecting attitude of a person. Okay, there are papers on factors affecting attitude of a person for buying a sustainable product. It has become specific to industry. Attitude studies are many. So attitude towards sustainable products, this is a new field. Find out what are the factors. If there are very common factors, religiosity is one factor which is not that common. Pick it up. Find out scale of religiosity, attitude. Bring the data. Let's analyze. Write a paper and get it published. It is as simple as that. It's not a very hectic process. Okay, once again, if you see the scale, I know that Jesus helps me. I think that going to church is a waste of time. Now look at this. If you see the first statement, it is positively coded. Okay, so if somebody says, I know that Jesus helps me, he says strongly agree, then what should be the answer to I think that going to church is a waste of time? What should be the number? If I know that Jesus helps me, he's rated 5. Strongly agree. Then what should be the answer? 1 to 5. On I think going to the church is a waste of time. What should be the answer? Yes. So here the answer should be between 1 to 2. Maximum 3. person says, I know that Jesus helps me, that 5, and I think going to a church is waste of time, again 5, which means he's a deceptive sample. इसका सैंपल मत इकट्ठा करिए, ये आपका क्वेश्चनर पढ़ भी नहीं रहा है, आपकी स्टेटमेंट पढ़ भी नहीं रहा है, ये सीधा उस तरह का क्वेश्चनर है, वो 4 वाला नहीं होता, ये वो वाला आपका सैंपल आ गया, इस पे टाइम वेस्ट मत करिए, ठीक है। और ये जो स्टार दिया है, ये स्टार इसलिए दिया है क्योंकि ये स्टार दिखाता है कि ये एक नेगेटिव स्टेटमेंट है, जानबूझ के दी जाती है सैंपल को चेक करने के लिए। बाकी सारी स्टेटमेंट्स आप देखेंगे पॉजिटिव है, गॉड हेल्प्स मी टू लीड अ बेटर लाइफ, गॉड मीन्स अ लॉट टू मी, प्रेयर हेल्प्स मी, आई नो जीसस इज वेरी क्लोज टू मी, एंड बाय द वे आई थिंक दैट बाइबल इज आउट ऑफ डेट, अगेन अ नेगेटिव स्टेटमेंट, देखिए फिर नेगेटिव स्टेटमेंट आ गई, यहाँ पर उसका आंसर 1 2 होना चाहिए, बाकी सब स्टेटमेंट्स में उसका आंसर 4 5 होना चाहिए, तब आपका सैंपल ठीक है, नहीं तो वो सैंपल ठीक नहीं है, वो सीधा 4 कर रहा है, उस रिसर्च का कोई फायदा नहीं है, आगे जाके योर रिलायबिलिटी विल नॉट कम गुड, क्योंकि योर रिलायबिलिटी प्रॉब्लम्स विल बी देयर, ओके। And okay, so this is about it. This seems to you, what does it seem like? Open to the house. Does it seem like a reflective scale or does it feel like a formative scale? Please tell me. पढ़िए और बताइए कि रेलिजियोसिटी अगर इससे नापी जा रही है तो क्या एक रिफ्लेक्टिव स्केल है या फॉर्मेटिव स्केल है? Okay, all now you will have to decide whether this is reflective or formative based on past review, but here it seems this is a reflective scale, because end of the day, if a person is feeling that Jesus helps me, I know that Jesus is very close to me, he should be saying the same answer to both of them. So what you are doing is, in these 7 statements you are repetitively asking him the same thing. This seems to be a reflective scale, not a formative scale. Let me again give you an example of a formative scale. How good was this workshop? Okay, statements: the resource person was good, strongly agree to strongly disagree. The connectivity was good, strongly agree to strongly disagree. The queries were handled well, strongly agree to strongly disagree. Now there are 3 parameters. Maybe queries were handled well, but the resource person was not good. Maybe resource person was good, but connectivity was not good. Here your sample can give different answers. Here in a reflective scale, he cannot. Okay? Now, what is a latent and unobserved variable? This construct that you have, this is called latent. Why it's called latent is because it cannot be directly measured. What is an observed variable? That Likert scale 1 to 5, those items, those statements, they are called observed variables. Okay, so construct over here, religiosity is latent variable or it is a construct. These 7 statements which are being used, on which we put strongly agree to strongly disagree 1 to 5, they became numeric. That becomes your observed variables. Okay, and error you forget. You will see this very frequently when you do a structural equation modeling seminar or a PLS SEM seminar. So there it straight away comes, they start from a model. So at least now you know from where that model came. Okay, and you now also know how to write down about this model. Okay, so measurements of scale we will be doing somewhere in the next class. Okay, so that's about it.